Hey everybody, I'm Anna J. Wollner with Indie Author Chat, and I am thrilled and ecstatic to have with me Rosalyn Briar today. Rosalyn, if you would introduce yourself for those who don't know who you are.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm Rosalyn Briar. I'm a dark fantasy indie author, and my first book came out last May, so May 5th, 2020, The Crown of Bones. And just in December, I released my second novel, A Sea of Pearls and Leaves.
Which is by far it is a gorgeous cover, which you guys saw in the beginning, and it has generated a ton of buzz. That's why I say, if you haven't heard of her and seen this book, it is everywhere, and it is getting rave reviews already for just having been released a couple of months ago. So what has that been like to see it just like go through the roof? What every indie author hopes is that it just takes off flying. So what has that been like?
Yeah, it's been great. This was, I would say this is definitely a book of my heart. I put so much of my soul into it, into the characters, and I worked so hard on this book. And so to get really nice reviews and to get people, so many people loving the cover. And it's just been, yeah, it's definitely been a dream. I guess back when I started writing, I just wasn't sure whatever I would do with, these works that I was writing. And then now to have actual books in front of me, it's pretty awesome.
And to see this kind of success that this book has gotten. A Sea of Pearls and Leaves is, like I said, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. It's just in the bookosphere, it is a buzz right now. So can you tell us maybe a little bit about it without giving too much away?
Oh, sure. Yeah, so A Sea of Pearls and Leaves is a dark fantasy fairy tale retelling from a lesser known tale of the Grimm's fairy tale. So it's called The Three Snake Leaves. And in that story, there's just this eccentric princess who doesn't really want to get married. So she creates this crazy rule that if she should die first, her husband has to be buried with her and buried alive. And so she thinks that nobody will agree to it, but then one man does. And then there's these resurrection leaves, and basically all this chaos happens. And so in my book, I kind of took that initial idea that there's this princess who is trying to avoid marriage, creates this rule. And so in mine, the princess is Ingrid, and she's happily in love with her girlfriend Lilura. And so the two of them create this contract that should Ingrid die first, then her husband must be buried at sea beside her. And they don't think that the suitors, so her father, the king, invites all these suitors to come and try to woo her. And so whenever they all agree to her contract, she's kind of thrown for a loop. And so they're thrown into this whole competition of suitors, and then there's murders. And yeah, so that's kind of the beginning of the premise for you. And so hopefully that did okay to describe it.
It has me thoroughly intrigued, and I have to go pull out my Grimm's fairy tale in there and read the original first, and then I am absolutely buying that book.
But yeah, I whenever that was one of my favorite fairy tales of the Grimm's fairy tales. There's that, and then the other one I love is The Seven Ravens. And so I knew I wanted to tell this story kind of, but I wanted to make it different. So in the original tale, the prince and the princess, they're buried in a crypt. But in mine, I just kept seeing like these boat graves. And so I'm like, okay, so what kind of culture would have boat graves? And so I knew they needed to be on an island, and I knew they needed to have some sort of mythology around the water. And so it just really grew from there.
And that is the first book. Is that, or is this the Sea of Pearls and Leaves?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's
Okay.
yeah, it's A Sea of Pearls and Leaves is a standalone novel, so it's not connected to The Crown of Bones.
I was gonna ask if it was a standalone or if it was part of a series.
Yeah.
So you beat me to that one. But I love to see how a genre or a theme is done differently, and to take a fairy tale and completely turn it around and reshape it. That has to be a new level of world building. Can you talk about that process? Because
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely loved doing the world building for this. Yeah, because when it comes to fairy tales, even the ones that we've heard and that we've seen retold over and over again, even those original tales like Beauty and the Beast or Cinderella, even those, if you go back to the original tale, there's not much to them. The Grimm's fairy tales or any other fairy tale that you read. They're usually kind of short. They don't really give character names, and they don't say much about the culture or anything. So you're just kind of left with like this idea. And so that's what I love about any sort of retelling, whether it's a story that you've seen a bunch or whether it's something new that you haven't seen a lot. It's still like these kind of ideas and what makes them magical. And so it's just so fun to kind of build upon that. And like I said, for this one, I just started with that idea of the boat graves, and then I built the world around that. And so it takes place on Norella Isle, and they worship the goddess of the sea, and they because they're on a small island, they bury their deceased with boat graves, and so it just all kind of came together from there. But I do love the idea of these small ideas that happen in a fairy tale and then kind of turning it into a full plot and a full story. It takes the same amount of work as it would a fresh story, because again, what you see in a fairy tale, it's very limited on what you can use or what's really there. They're not very meaty themselves, so it's definitely fun to see what it's fun to do it myself to change things up, and it's also fun to read other retellings to see what are they going to change, what kind of world are they going to create. So yeah, I definitely love fairy tale retellings.
so you kind of get to start with a spark and then nurture it into a completely new flame. That's awesome. So you've built a whole new kingdom and new rules and new everything in the book.
Yes. Yeah, it's just its own little fantasy world there, where the princess lives. It's Norella Isle, but then there's she has all these suitors coming from these other kingdoms, and so like I would sketch out like in a sketchbook like where all these places were. I don't have an official map or anything, but it was definitely fun to like figure out where people would come from and tried to make the suitors feel like they were from different cultures. And even though they weren't completely, their culture and their kingdom wasn't completely fleshed out in the world building, but I wanted them to each feel unique. And then I had with the with Norella Isle and with the world building, I almost treated it like it was its own character and made sure that, there was some sort of world building or just the feeling or the atmosphere was on every single page. Like you'd open your book and that's where you were. Like you were definitely on Norella Isle. And so I've had multiple people say they really felt like they were there. They could smell the sea salt. And so that was like one of the best compliments I've gotten. I've had two people say that in reviews, that they really could like smell the sea salt in the air. And so I was like, all right, I did my job of like creating the setting.
So you incorporate all of the senses: sight, sound, touch, smell, everything.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, I think it's important to do that and do it often, to make sure, to keep the setting like feel real. And so the characters are always interacting with their setting, and that way the reader feels like they're actually there.
that's awesome. And then I wanted to talk about a couple of the themes that the book touches on, which is it does touch on anxiety, and it's very inclusive to the LGBTQ community, which I love. Can you explain a little more about those themes and kind of expound on them? Let us in on that thought process.
Yes, definitely. So what people will find with this book is that there is LGBTQ representation. The main character, Ingrid, is bisexual. Her girlfriend, Lilura, actually, she kind of grows and develops in her sexuality. So I think at first she's unsure, and she just has, to her, she just has this special heart. She doesn't quite understand where she fits and everything, and she doesn't know, and she grows, and it's never explicitly stated, but at first she's, like I said, unsure, but it's never explicitly stated, but she's demi, and she she kind of realizes that to her heart it doesn't matter what someone looks like, and so she kind of more falls in love with someone's soul. And so yeah, she's quite a unique character. And then there's also the idea of polyamory in there. So if anyone's interested in that topic, that definitely happens. And yeah, so I think overall, I really enjoyed writing these characters. I was just hoping that it would really connect with readers who might be able to see themselves in one of them, or to just feel comfortable with them, like just seeing that representation in like a sort of like high fantasy book, so I was hoping that would be maybe exciting for readers too. And then when it comes to anxiety, so there's Ingrid, Lilura, and Soren, who are the main characters. And so their chapters, like they're the point of view chapters. And so Soren is a prince, and he suffers from anxiety. And so he's of all the suitors, he's the one that doesn't want to be there. He tries to turn his ship around. He's just he's just the little cinnamon roll who is just so scared to go.
I just learned what that was not very long ago. So that's hilarious that you said that, because I just finally learned what that is. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, not at all. So yeah, so Soren suffers from anxiety, but whenever he and Ingrid are together, he feels comfortable around her, and then he realizes, they end up talking more, he realizes that she sort of suffers from anxiety too. Although Ingrid's quite comfortable with her own sexuality, she's always been talked about. She's almost like this celebrity. I mean, she's the princess, so people are always talking about her, and so if she's in public, she gets so nervous, and she doesn't really like to handle public events. And so Soren teaches her one of his anxiety coping mechanisms, and so it's just good that they can kind of bond over that. So yeah, I just hope that that will also speak to some readers. I actually had a few reviews come in that say they really appreciated how well Soren, I guess, represented kind of, anxiety, and they really felt a connection with him because they could see themselves in him. And then I also had someone tell me that his anxiety coping mechanism was exactly what they do. And so they sent me a message saying, wow, what he does in the book, that's what I do. And they had never heard of anyone else doing it. And so if you guys read the book, then you'll know what he does, because he's constantly thinking about it. It happens like every time Soren's on the page, he's probably doing it. And so, but yeah, I had someone reach out and say that's exactly what they do. So it just felt really special to write him in there and just kind of give a different view of what a hero could look like in a fantasy novel. Yeah, and whereas Ingrid and Lilura are super strong women. And so it was kind of neat to balance them out with what some people might think is not the strongest hero in Soren, but he really is strong in his own right. Despite his anxiety, he still can be a hero. He still gets the nickname Soren the Savior in the competition. So he can still do some awesome things.
There's a lot just in what you've said that tells me that the characters you're gonna watch them grow and learn more about themselves. There's some self-discovery that you explore here, especially in dealing with sensuality and the way that the characters identify, which is fantastic. I think that a lot of readers will really get benefit out of that and appreciate it. And then to be inclusive and sensitive to anxiety, which is, you know, a big thing that a lot of us, myself included, I appreciate that, because, you know, it's something that I deal with on a daily basis. And we'll see if Soren and I have the same. That'll be interesting to see if maybe we have the same coping mechanisms. That's awesome. So I want to talk about the cover, because it is so eye-catching. You can't miss it. Scroll through anywhere and that's book related, and you will see it. It just jumps off of the page. Is there any symbolism behind that? I know that the story is the snake and three leaves, but is there any symbolism with your take on the of the fairy tale in the book?
Yes, yeah. Thank you for saying that too. Yeah, I have the book here, and I really appreciate all the kind comments. But yeah, I love it so much. So
the colors are amazing. The shading is amazing. Everything is gorgeous.
Yeah, I don't know if it's backwards.
No.
Okay, it's just backwards for me then. Yeah, so yeah, I do love the colors and the little pearls everywhere. And then the back also makes me happy. Because usually the back of indie books, especially even my other one, I thought my other book was really pretty, but this one just, you know, the added seashell and the pearls just makes it kind of fun. So,
and this is actually based off of your design, off of something that you drew, which is awesome that you had someone that could take. I'm not good at drawing at all, so no one could create a cover from anything I draw, but that someone was able to, that you created the cover, and it's all you and your take on the story.
Yeah, so a while back when I was still editing the novel, and I, you know, was getting close to the time to book a cover designer, and I knew who I wanted. I had seen some of her work, like graphic design skills, and I knew that she would do a good job. She's Nicole Haley, which is at Nicole Haley Art on Instagram. And so I had done a little sketch. I love to share my writing journey on Instagram, and I had done some sketches. One was a snake that was broken into pieces and had little leaves coming out of it. And she took that idea and created this, and I just was blown away. But it does have symbolism to it. So in the original tale, when the prince and princess are in the crypt, there's a snake that comes and tries to attack the prince. He's still alive, but like buried alive. And he cuts it up. And then another snake brings these magic leaves and heals his little friend, I guess. And so, and that's kind of the idea of that's why it's cut up, is because in the original story, there was a snake that was cut up. Now, no snakes were harmed in my story. But Lilura has 2 pet snakes, and one of them is an all-white snake. So I like to pretend that this is Opal. So this is Opal on the cover, and one of Lilura's snakes. But yeah, and then the leaves coming out of it just sort of represent the healing or the resurrection leaves that the characters in the book, Lilura and Nilsen, will discover. And so, and then there's pearls on it, of course, which is the reason it's called Sea of Pearls and Leaves. I just explained the leaves, but for the pearls, it's because the Princess Ingrid, not only does she have anxiety about being in public, but she is haunted by this, what she and Lilura have been calling her doppelganger. There's this creepy thing in the mirrors or any reflective surfaces, whether it's her bathtub, the ocean, or the sea. So there's any kind of reflective surfaces or windows, and that's kind of actually in the first, I could read the first lines of the book, but she's kind of haunted by this doppelganger that sort of looks like her, but it's also a bit grotesque. It's like, it's got barnacles on it, it's got, tangled white hair, and it's got a tail like a mermaid. And so she's haunted by this thing throughout the entire book. And so to protect her from, they think it's an omen of death. And so to protect her from death, Lilura creates this enchanted pearl powder, like she crushes up pearls, and then they put this powder all over Ingrid. So she's always like shiny, she's always wearing pearls. And so that's where that title comes from. But yeah, so that's why the pearls are on there. So yeah. But yeah, the cover just says so much about the story. And even on the back, when readers see this, they'll know the special meaning of the nautilus. It's something that was special between Ingrid and her mother. And so it's just, everything about the cover is just so special to me.
And the fact that it's cut into 3 pieces is kind of an homage to the original tale.
Yes, definitely.
Which you wouldn't otherwise have known.
Yeah, because other people might look at it and then they read the story and there's no snakes that are harmed.
So they might question that, why, and then only here you get the answers.
Get the good information here.
So is this something that, because the other book that you released last year, the City of Bone,
the Crown of Bones, yeah.
The Crown of Bones, I'm sorry. It is also a fairy tale retelling. So that is something that you have kind of taken on. Is there another fairy tale retelling that is in the works?
There certainly is. So with the Crown of Bones, that story is it was this idea of bringing all Grimm's fairy tales together and have them they all have the same villain. And so that's why all the stories are connected. And a book I'm working on at the moment is the sequel to The Crown of Bones, which is called The Bone Needle. And it's called that because they find out in The Crown of Bones that there is this bone needle that has magic of the gods, is how the stories have been woven into these magical tapestries. And so that's the bone needle I'm working on, but I'm also working on a super exciting project, which is a Maleficent origin story. And so it's, I'm already pretty excited about it. I just keep coming up with these ideas, and yeah, I'm pretty excited. It kind of feels to me the way A Sea of Pearls and Leaves did when I was writing it. It's just
that special kind of, I'm excited about this. I know it's gonna, I know I can do something really great with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm excited because I know, there's been multiple Sleeping Beauty retellings, and obviously with the Disney movies, I'm not going to be able to call it Maleficent, but
Right.
because that name is trademarked by Disney. They came up with that name, but in the fairy tales, she was just either called the Wicked Fairy or the Evil Fairy. And so, and I think one of the ballets, she was called Caraboss. I'm not sure if I'm even pronouncing it right. So I'm kind of giving her own story. And I know obviously Disney did theirs, but mine will be completely different. And yeah, I'm really excited about it.
So yeah, and for I mean, if you guys haven't read Grimm's fairy tales, you hear the term fairy tales, and it sounds like, oh, this is just you guys, these are dark. They're dark, and so I can just imagine that, and from listening to what you say, it is a dark fantasy. It does explore some dark and mature themes. So guys, even though it's a gorgeous cover and it's not YA, so it is
definitely adult, definitely some adult. Steamy scenes in there.
So guys, this is definitely one that I'm going to be picking up as soon as we get off of here. I'm going straight to Amazon. No kidding. And but yes, I just it's been such a pleasure to talk to you and hear the creative genius that you have put behind some of the most beloved fairy tales that some of us might know and some of us may never have heard of before. And to see them done in such a different way is such a creative art. Is that not so fun to be able to weave something that is completely your own from these tales?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it really is. I think, I mean, I haven't been writing for that long, but when I started, I didn't think I would kind of stick to the theme of fairy tales. Like The Crown of Bones was just like, I just liked that idea of having all these stories have the same villain. And so, but then after that, whenever I had the idea for A Sea of Pearls and Leaves, I'm like, wow, so I guess I'm a fairy tale writer. I don't know.
a different take on fairy tales, bringing them into a new and inclusive light, which I greatly do. We see that inclusivity also in the first book as well, and will we see it moving forward?
Yeah, so there's a little bit of it in The Crown of Bones, but the main couple in The Crown of Bones, they're a straight couple. But then moving forward, so the Maleficent story, I think there will be some because I'm still like in the beginning phases of it, but I already know that so there's going to be 2 points of view, which is, I've already revealed the names. So I guess if I say it, I revealed them on like on my Instagram and stuff, but Mirabelle, who becomes Maleficent, she is one of the main points of view. And then there's this soldier, Bizarian, who, and so we'll see that he has friends who are LGBTQ. And so I definitely I wanted to keep that going. And so, so yeah, I already have these characters planned out. And so I'm kind of, I'm working to do that. And I definitely want to continue with more representation with other stories. So yeah, I'm just hoping I just like the idea of people being able to see themselves in these kind of stories. So
absolutely, thank you for that. Yeah, well, it has been an honor to talk with you. I feel like I'm sitting with the next big thing that is just guys, kind of a little Twitter pated over here fan. I'm a fan. I'm a fan. And just
this was such a great opportunity for me.
Are you kidding? I mean, thank you so, so much for coming on today and for talking with me. And guys, go check out everything that Rosalyn has, but especially check out A Sea of Pearls and Leaves, which just came out. And like I said, that's as soon as we get done here, I'm buying that book.
Well, thank you. Yeah, this was a super fun chat.
Yes. All right, guys. Well, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any future content. And I will have all of Rosalyn's links in the description below. Definitely check her out on Instagram. Follow her, and we'll talk to you guys again soon.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Anna, for this opportunity.
Thank you, Rosalyn. Yes, thank you so much. Bye, guys.